Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, August 9th, 2016 at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is Advancement Live. I am your host for today's show, Andrew Gosen. On today's episode, we are talking about video. It should come as no surprise to viewers that video is hot. Here are just a few statistics that I have selected to illustrate the breadth and reach of video activity online. 1/3 of all time spent online is spent watching video. The average internet user is exposed to 32 videos a month. It's not just that people are consuming a lot of video online, but an amazing amount of video content is being put online every month. In fact, more video content is uploaded in 30 days than the 3 major US TV networks have created combined over the past 30 years. And all of this content is not being put up for recreational purposes, although in some cases it is. But it's because video has an impact on organizations and their business goals. One example of this is that video in an email lead leads to an increase of 200 to 300% in click-through rate. So given that it's manifestly obvious that video is becoming the dominant medium of the internet, especially as video gets increasing traction on mobile, it's no surprise that nonprofits have been trying to leverage video. In higher ed, for instance, 86% of colleges and universities in the US have a presence on YouTube. But not all video is created equal. It can be challenging to create video content that aligns well with business goals and that drives audience behavior. It can be complicated. It can be expensive. And in today's conversation, we're going to be talking about ways to make sure that you are getting the most out of the time, the energy, and the effort that you invest in your video. But before we dive in, let me say some quick words of thanks to our sponsors and introduce today's guests. Advancement Live is part of the Higher Ed Live network, offering viewers direct access to the best and brightest minds in higher education. Live broadcasts allow viewers to share knowledge and participate in discussions around the most important issues in the industry. All episodes of Advancement Live are free and accessible in the video archives at higheredlive.com and in podcast format on iTunes. Today's episode is sponsored by iModules. iModules software is the leading constituent engagement management provider for educational institutions. iModules delivers an integrated online platform transforming how institutions strengthen constituent relationships and achieve fundraising success. iModules, we thank you for your support. Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner, a marketing and communications firm that works with education institutions on branding, strategy, web design, and more. In August, M. Stoner is offering a 2-part webinar series on Google Analytics and Tag Manager. Higher Ed pros often have Google Analytics in their toolbox, but determining digital success takes more than counting clicks and page views. It's a challenge to identify meaningful metrics and have the right configuration in place to make use of them to achieve your goals. Registration is $299, and we are tweeting out a link right now where you can learn more and register. With that, let me welcome today's guests. First up is Ryan Ferland, who is Creative Director and Partner at Embryo Creative. Embryo specializes in working with higher education institutions and other nonprofit organizations to improve fundraising performance through video and social media programs. Prior to Embryo, Ryan was with WBUR, where he developed their marketing communication programs to improve donor engagement. Ryan holds a master's degree in advertising from Boston University. Joining Ryan is Elise Mayfield. Austin is a Michigander turned New Englander who loves hearing a good story as much as she loves telling one. Her training in both poetry and broadcast journalism have forged a drive to create engaging and purposeful media experiences that connect with audiences in meaningful ways. Austin is currently the integrated media producer for development communications at Boston University, where she works to leverage video and multimedia content to enrich alumni outreach. You can connect with her on Twitter at AustinElise, but you'll have better luck on Instagram. And finally, we are joined by Melissa Juergens from the Fox School of Business at Temple University, where she is currently a Senior Associate Director of Marketing. Melissa comes from an agency background, having worked in media for more than 10 years at companies such as Tierney Communications and Mayo Sites Media. She's worked on various account type categories. Her clients have included Villanova, Penn Medicine, and Commerce Bank. And she is earning her master's in marketing from the Fox School, graduating in December 2017. Melissa, good luck with your coursework, and we hope that all goes smoothly. Melissa is also a former adjunct professor for Temple in the Communications School in the Advertising Department. And thank you all three for joining us. Ryan, Austin, and Melissa, I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Great.
All right, so for those of you watching along, please don't hesitate to ask questions using the hashtag HigherEdLive, and I will do my best to take these questions and ask them to our guests as they come in. But let's set the stage for this conversation with you, Ryan.
Okay.
You and I had a great conversation last week talking about the concept behind this one video to rule them all title that we've been using for this episode. What sorts of trends are you seeing in how video is being used by nonprofits in general and higher ed in specific as you work across the whole range of clients that you work with?
I would say the biggest trend that I've seen is that for a lot of higher ed clients, for a lot of nonprofit clients, they are still creating what I'm going to call showcase videos. So they spend a good deal of their budget to do the video for their gala kickoff, or they do spend a good deal of their video for some other kind of their capital campaign. And what we've found is that the institutions that get the most bang for their buck are the ones that will use the filming process for that capital campaign video, and they'll maybe add an extra day of filming to it. And that way they'll be able to get videos for some social media. They'll be able to get some videos for some other events. They'll be able to make multiple cuts of the video so that they can target different donor bases or different constituencies. So maybe they'll have one video that's edited slightly differently so it goes straight to alumni, one other video that's more geared towards students, one more that's geared towards parents and friends. That's something that we've seen, I'd say, over the past year or two, more organizations are starting to do because, let's face it, with social media, like you said, there's this push to get more and more video. There's this constant need for content. And while production prices have gone down, they haven't gone down significantly enough where you can make amazing videos as one-offs every single time. So that's definitely, it's funny, the one video to rule them all, that's a reference to Lord of the Rings, and the production process of Lord of the Rings, where they filmed 3 movies all at once, is really the inspiration for that title. Because that's what I think with our clients we're starting to see more of, where they're taking a global look back and they're saying, okay, what's my video needs for the year? I need to do 10 videos. So let's see how we can do this in the most efficient, least wasteful way.
What are the reasons you think that clients you've worked with in general have used that other approach in the past, the approach where you think you've got this sort of showcase event where you want the one video and you just do it and you don't think more expansively?
I would say it's because, when you're in the thick of it, you sometimes need to just worry about the next issue in front of you. And sometimes having to be able to take a step back and have that time to just really plan it out and think about it can be a challenge, especially because I think, Austin, earlier you were talking about it in your department, it's you and one other person. And so that can be, you're always just trying to get the next project done. And I think that can be a challenge. I can also think, and most people still think of video as a form of mass communication. It's something that you try to push out to as many audiences as possible. And then in the age of social media, in the age of targeting, video is more of a micro communication. You're able to, and once you start thinking about it as a form of micro communication, where you're not speaking to one audience but many audiences, then you start to really have to realize that your planning for video has to change.
Yeah, it feels to me as though with this notion of video as a micro communication, that there are some implications that have to do with things like length of web video relative to what people may have grown accustomed to in the pre-digital revolution age, or things like production quality. And don't get me wrong, I'm not turning my nose up at good production quality, but it feels like in terms of web video, you can get away with things now that you couldn't get away with before, and that people may still be thinking about video is this incredibly expensive, elaborate, complex process that's only trotted out for special occasions, as opposed to something that can be much more of a sort of daily communication strategy.
Definitely, it's something that can be used more frequently, and it doesn't have to be as expensive as people fear. And the challenge with video, I mean, video is inherently a wasteful medium. Production is incredibly wasteful, and if you can sort of harness some of that waste. So what do I mean by waste? So when you're doing an interview for a 5-minute video, you might interview someone for an hour, and of that hour, of that hour interview, that person might get 30 seconds. There's all this content that's not getting used. And one of the ways I think that you can still have high quality production is knowing how to take that content and use it in other avenues. And we're doing a project now with a client. It's their centennial anniversary, and we've interviewed about 50 alumni and faculty and students. We've heard some amazing stories. We heard the story from a couple who met at this university in the 1950s, and they're still together. And it was just beautiful and heartwarming. And unfortunately, that isn't going to be able to get in a 5-minute piece. But it's a great piece of social content. And that's the kind of content that I think, as you're producing video in the future, you need to think of. It's how can I get more just awesome storytelling from what I'm already doing.
So before we went live, we were sort of chatting, and you were saying that it was in the context of working with BU and Austin that you first really began to deploy this approach to video. Austin, can I ask you to talk a little bit about how this process unfolded from the institutional perspective in terms of your goals going into this conversation with Embryo, and then how this plan sort of emerged?
Well, I get to speak about it sort of from what the elders have passed down, because actually this video was created before I joined the team, but I heard a lot about a process, and then we have had the opportunity to work with Embryo more than a couple times since then. But basically, Boston University, when we launched into the Choose to Be Great campaign, was trying to figure out how do we tell a big BU story. The university has a lot of history, and it seemed like the history was tucked in these different compartments. And our president was really big on, and it's still big on, the concept of one BU. We have 17, 18 different schools and colleges, and each one of the schools and colleges have had historic moments, great alumni. So how do we tell a central story with all of these different pieces that could be approached disparately, but in this case can't be, because this is a university campaign, right? So the process really was, at the concept, there were some key themes around greatness, the Choose to Be Great campaigns, like what is greatness, and from the tag from the campaign was really thought out, what are the elements of greatness, and then which of our alumni can we sort of point to, not as the only example, but perhaps a key example of that. And then from there, lots of videos and storylines emerged. And it was actually, Ryan, you can speak a little bit about this too. There was one video that could be played in its full length, but then also was structured to be broken up into smaller pieces, both with retrospective sort of vintage feel, but then that tied into current successes and trailblazing that were happening at the university at the time. So it was a really great opportunity to show history, but also to show current successes and progress, and sort of tied that together in terms of the greatness that we are hoping to bring people into and feel inspired by.
I really like the notion of this modular video approach that you've just described. I certainly have been at enough alumni events myself where you try to play a full campaign video which may run 15 minutes because it was designed for the big reveal at the gala kickoff dinner, right? And you can feel attention start to wander in the room where you're with the Cornell Club of Peoria or something like that after the first 3 or 4 minutes, and it makes much more sense just to either have highlights or one particular segment that was originally envisioned with that particular use case in mind.
Well, and it was also really great because for the kickoff event, again, I have heard the legend, it was actually shown in modules, so you could be in there for the first 2 videos and then go out and experience the rest of the event and then come back in and maybe see a video that you hadn't seen before and then go back out and mingle. So it was almost, it became an experience, and so the video was able to support not just online digital publication efforts, but real-time immersive experience.
Nice, nice. So it sounds like this type of approach is feasible in the context of something that requires a lot of advanced planning anyway. Like a campaign, right? Because we're all used to the planning phase and then the quiet phase and then launch and so on and so forth. Do you think it can also be effectively deployed as part of your daily communication strategy or annual communication strategy?
Absolutely. I think part of the experience with Embryo and sort of looking back retrospectively after I joined the team, becoming really strategic in, okay, if we're going to shoot this interview, what are we going to do with the content? Like, we've started the practice, we transcribe everything because you never know what quote could be used, you know, in an upcoming newsletter, in a tag for a direct mailing. To thinking about what you all mentioned before about why were people making this one video, because I think for a while video was still the spectacle, right? It's like, look, we have a video, we spent this money and we have a video, sit down for 4 minutes and watch this video and be proud of your alma mater, right? It's like, we have video, like Hollywood has videos, but now we're moving more from the spectacle aspect of it to the strategy aspect, and we have to, because there are wonderful, you know, middle schoolers out in Iowa out producing us on a daily basis on YouTube because they can. And so with all the noise, in order for universities and institutions to stay current, being really strategic and not relying on the spectacle of video anymore is imperative at this point.
That makes total sense to me. Melissa, could we hear you, and could you talk to us a little bit about how you are employing this planful approach to your video content at Fox School?
Sure. So at Fox, in the graduate marketing division of Fox, we kind of have a dual goal in that we are always trying to promote our brand image and increase our brand reputation. But aside from that, you know, generating leads and getting people interested in specific programs is really, you know, what we're tasked with from a marketing standpoint. So when we approached Embryo looking for videos, we really wanted to leverage those videos to get people interested and excited about our individual programs overall. So our programs are rather expansive. We have 4 different MBA programs and about 14 different specialized master's programs. So the target audience for them, as you can imagine, is really different. Some of the MBA programs are for working professionals, whereas our global program would be for someone that is immersed full-time in getting their MBA. So their wants and their needs are very different. So we needed to communicate that very effectively and kind of create this overall image for each individual MBA program on top of different specialized master's programs as well. So we asked Embryo to provide us with you know, a holistic approach for various different videos, but also to leverage some of the you know, video content that they would be creating, so that they would come out here for a couple of days on campus and do some, you know, production here all at once, and then go back and then create individualized, specialized approaches with, you know, with with different copy that is unique to each program and different voiceover that's unique to each program, so that it really does hit home with the audience for each of those programs. So we've done that. We've now created 4 different videos as well as a holistic video for the Fox School of Business. And we have used those videos in a lot of different ways here internally at Fox to not only build our brand reputation, but to also increase lead generation.
So Ryan, when you have a client come to you with that set of audiences and business goals in mind, what does your process look like? How do you begin to think about that task?
The first thing we do is we try to identify each audience, and we try to identify the demographic, the driver for each audience. In the case of the videos that we're doing and still doing for Fox, you know, the online MBA has a different demographic and a different set of motivators than the part-time MBA, than their global MBA, than their executive MBA. So the first thing is figuring out who's the audience and what's motivating them, what's driving them. The second thing is, what are the points of difference? And then you start thinking, okay, well, we need to have a global strategy for all of these videos. What's the look? What's the hook? And once we've started to develop the look and the hook, we start thinking, okay, so how can we smartly produce these videos and keep on budget? And so Melissa kind of mentioned this. What we did is we filmed 4, 5, 6 videos, the content for 4, 5, 6 videos all at once in a week last November. And so we went down to Philadelphia. We had everything planned out by day, different locations, different actors, different people, and we had it all worked out so that when we came into the editing process, we were able to then use all of this different content smartly. So sometimes it was as simple as changing the color scheme of the video, keeping the same design but changing the color scheme, bringing in a different kind of VO artist. So for their executive MBA, we brought in a more, let's say, seasoned VO artist who had a certain gravitas to their voice. For the younger MBA program, we brought in someone who sounded younger, who had more energy. And so just by making little tweaks, we were able to take all of this video content and create a whole just series that, watched individually, worked and looked beautiful and was compelling and it was on message and strategic. But then if you watched all of them, they all felt like they were part of a family, and they all sort of reflected a certain brand and a certain messaging and a certain style. And I think when you plan out your videos for the year, you can really focus on some of the intangibles, like making sure that anytime one of your videos comes up, people just kind of know because of the style and the look. And I think that's really important, especially as when you're talking to alumni or when you're talking to prospective students or you're talking to donors, you want them to recognize, like, oh, that's a Temple video or that's a VU video, and I know it's going to be good. And that's something that you can do when you plan it out, because it's not hodgepodge. It's all got a strategy behind it.
So this produces not only a coherence, like you suggested, across the multiple videos within this family of videos, but then there are also significant efficiencies and cost savings because you're taking full advantage of the presence of the film crew on campus.
Significant cost savings. When you're able to film something, and if you kind of like I said earlier, just go think about an interview subject, an interview video. When you're filming someone for an hour, there's so much that gets left on the cutting room floor, and being smart about the questions that you're asking, that can create such efficiencies. We're doing a video shoot now for not a higher ed institution, but a large nonprofit in Boston. We had a film shoot 4 days last week. We're filming their annual sort of gala campaign video, but we're also filming, at my guess, we're also going to be able to produce, at my guess, at least 10, if not 15 targeted social media videos that are targeted to certain demographics. So we're going to be able to target millennial donors. We're going to be able to produce videos that can target donor levels. So we can create a video that can target younger donors who might not give a lot, $5, $10 if they can, and then we can also target higher end donors. And we did this all from a 4-day shoot. And it was because we knew that we had to ask certain questions of people, and we knew ahead of time this is the structure and where we were going. The metaphor I like to use when talking about this production process is the old way of making videos was like a film. You would make one video, or you would make one film. You'd hire a director, you'd have your script, and at the end you'd have a great looking film. TV does it differently. TV actually, a TV producer will map out their entire season. And they'll map out the look and feel of the show, and they'll have a lot more strategy involved when they're producing. And I think what we've tried to do is take more of that television production model where you think more globally, because that's how you can do something more cheaply.
Yeah, as you were walking through that analogy, I was remembering some of the stuff I read about the incredible complexity of producing Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
Where when you've got the cast and the crew in Iceland, you better get all you need from Iceland for that particular season, because otherwise it's completely cost prohibitive.
And that's exactly how we approach things. It's thinking about, if you're in a location, or even we'll make it smaller, more relevant to the audience. If you've got a donor that's hard to get in a room, and because maybe they're overseas, and you want them in your main campaign video, but you might need them in other videos later on. If you've planned out your video content for the year, you're able to then leverage that person's time, and you're able to leverage the production crew, and you're able to get, just far more work for a lot less money.
So I think that's one big takeaway for viewers. You can never go wrong making a business case to your leadership by claiming that something's going to produce efficiencies and save them money.
Okay.
I've yet to see that fail. So Austin, Melissa did a really nice job of walking us through some of the audiences that they're focused on at Fox School of Business and some of their business goals. Could you do the same thing for the BU context as you thought about your campaign videos? What were the core audiences, and what sorts of activity were you trying to cultivate in those audiences?
I mean, for the bigger projects that we worked on with Embryo, we had the luxury and the burden of speaking really to all of our alumni and creating, because this is our first public campaign. So it's not as if we have a constituency that's used to this sort of targeted messaging and towards an end goal, and so we really were starting from scratch. And so with it was everybody. It was literally all of them. We have over 300,000 living alumni in 24 countries around the globe. So really being able to find those elements that just really tied people back in. Ultimately, when we're thinking about what success was, in a real sense, it was starting with visibility. It wasn't necessarily, oh, well, this video raised this much money, because I think we all sort of know that trying to tie numbers to video can feel sort of fruitless in the end, but it's getting that exposure, getting that brand recognition, confirming and solidifying what that brand is over the course of some video. So I think now when people hear Choose to Be Great, if they're a BU alum, they know, like, oh yes, that's the campaign for Boston University, and ultimately that's success for us when you're starting a campaign. In the second video, not the second, but the one that I got to work with Embryo on, it was specifically for an event. And so for us, success with that video was more storytelling, connecting people again to traditions at the university, thinking about legacy, and then we were able to attach that to some newsletters, post it online, and sort of just build warm fuzzies for the university. So none of these were strictly based on impressions or views, but we were really impressed with what we saw on social and the response that we got from it.
So you're not necessarily setting yourself goals in terms of quantifiable reach, but you do pay attention to that.
Not with the larger embryo videos. What my job is to think about that on like the small scale when I don't get a budget for Ryan to play with on a daily basis. We are looking at usability, flexibility of videos, impressions, viewers, likes, shares. But from our experiences on these larger videos, it really has helped inform our day-to-day approach with video production and figuring out what stories are going to give us the opportunity to do more, and making sure that when we are in a room with someone, we're thinking, okay, can this be used for an event? Or if a client comes to us and says, hey, we want to make something for an event, then we start the conversation with them about, well, if you want to use this for events, then how else can you use this on social? And how can you use this in a newsletter? And can we shoot this, can we get a budget for 4K so we can easily pull stills from this and hand them over to the designer so that they can be used in a case statement, in a print piece. So literally we are, getting down to the nitty-gritty cellular level of what can we get from this shoot that's going to help us tell good BU stories down the line.
That sounds very efficient. Can't argue with that approach at all. In terms of this broader question about attaching metrics to videos and sort of how the extent to which it's possible to draw a sort of watertight chain of conversion or chain of causality from a particular video effort and a particular sort of quantifiable outcome. It sounds like your situation is a little bit different, Melissa, in that you're very much focused on brand awareness, but then also getting people to apply to your programs. Is that the case?
Yeah, we like to, we call generating leads, basically we're trying to get people to opt in to engage with us. So a lot of what we do is send people to a request for more information form or get them to somehow give us their name and email address so that then we can turn around and further engage with them down the line and eventually hopefully convert them into becoming a student here at Fox. So the way that we have started to use the videos in a couple of different ways, very similarly to what Austin was saying, is we've used them in social media feeds where we are just trying to increase likes and overall impressions and engagement for our social media channels. But on top of that, we've embedded our videos into email marketing and communication plans where it's so much easier to send someone a video and have them watch a video about our program versus trying to tell the story in words. So we've used videos within the email communications to go out. We also had a little bit of fun with our videos for the MBA programs when they were produced, all 4 of them. We did a little gamified approach where we created a microsite and drove folks to the microsite to watch all 4 videos. And at the end, we said, are you still not sure which MBA program is right for you? Take this quiz, and we gamified it, gave them a quiz to take that played right off of the videos, and then we're able to get their information for further engagement after that. So we're trying to be creative and clever with how to actually quantify numbers and leads off of the videos, even though, to Austin's point, videos aren't always able to be numbers-based metrics for success.
Right.
So, So we also have started to insert videos, cut them down into programmatic video, so with our paid advertising placements, and we definitely plan to do more of that come our fall campaign. So we look forward to testing those metrics as we move into the fall for spring enrollment.
Nice. Yeah, I think that some of the functionality that we're seeing emerge on channels like Facebook has really sort of transformed the horizons of the possible in terms of being able to do custom audiences where if you know exactly who those people are, that's actually a very efficient spend of an advertising dollar if you can get the right content in front of the right people and you're not paying for anybody but the people who are on your list.
Yes.
That leads me to a question about the degree to which you can develop video content for really very narrow, little, high-value, niche audiences. Let's start with you, Ryan. Do you think there's a point beyond which you can't shrink an audience anymore and still? Actually, I'm not asking this question the way I want to. Can there be scenarios in which it makes sense to define an audience that, by normal standards, is absurdly small? But if you know who those people are, you know what you want them to do, and you have leveraged your video shoot time effectively, you can actually get the exact right thing in front of them to give them a meaningful experience that's going to further their engagement with you.
I can say that we have produced videos for an audience of one. And we have produced, we worked with it was a donor thank you video that we worked with a Boston hospital on, and it was an audience of one, and it was a relatively involved production, but this donor had given quite a lot of money to the institution, and they wanted to show this person how grateful and how thankful they were. And we filmed it, and we used a lot of the same techniques to try to keep the costs down, to keep it focused, that we've done with other clients. But we've done things with very limited audiences, an audience of a couple hundred, an audience of whoever is in the room that night at the event. And I think it's something that when you are planning your videos, if you know that there's going to be one video that has a very limited audience, but some of that content could be used for a video that can be in a more general audience, just planning it from the start is what's going to help you increase your ROI. And it really is the strategy behind your production that's just important. If you think about it, I used to do, my first job out of college was writing direct mail letters. And when you write a direct mail letter, you don't just write the first one. You usually write the whole series. You write drop 1, drop 2, drop 3, drop 4, drop 5. You've planned it out, and you know the process, and you do that. So you only write them, but then you also probably a lot of times print them all at the same time to save money. So what we're talking about now is just using those same principles a lot of fundraisers already use in direct mail, and just applying them to a new medium, and using that idea of planning out your video campaigns for the year, planning out your video for the year, planning out how you're going to maximize your budget. That's something that I think a lot of fundraisers, marketers, they've been doing for forever in print and in email and online, and now it's just time that now that the shininess of video has worn off, as Austin kind of was alluding to earlier, it's not just about having a video anymore. It's about, can this video communicate the message to the right people for the least amount of money? And I think that's where we all are right now. And this talk and planning it out is just the first step.
Well, and I also want to not have people terrified, we have to plan everything. You should plan everything, but in case you don't, I'm 100% positive that if you spend a significant amount of money on a single video for a single large donor, that there's going to be at least 4 videos that retrospectively you can look back and say, oh wow, we could do this little bit on social, and maybe we could, even if you didn't have the opportunity to plan ahead of time, there are still those opportunities which, you know, you may not get the same bang for your buck, but it's not a hopeless effort, because that's the great thing about footage, is that it can have multiple applications. So just because you did, you know, an interview with a whole bunch of B-roll for the first one, take out the interview, add some graphics, publish. You know, you have another video right at your fingertips if you just take a moment and look at what's there.
Yeah, I think that this framing that you all are articulating, of this actually not being that different from ways that fundraisers have thought about planning and producing their content in an efficient way and then distributing it. I mean, in some offices, this has been going on for decades. This is just a different medium, but the mindset is actually not all that novel or radical. So, Melissa, could I ask you, as you sort of peer into the future at Fox School of Business, what are some of the ways in which you're planning on applying this approach in future projects?
Well, as we go into our new fiscal year, which starts in July, we always take a step back and say, what have we done and what have we had success with that we want to roll out, you know, for other programs. And so, as you can imagine, the success of the MBA videos has really brought to light a lot of interest among other program directors here internally that have specialized master's programs, undergrad programs, an online undergrad program, doctoral program. So we've already started to work with Embryo to produce some of those more extended videos that we weren't, you know, planning on doing before, but now with the success of the MBA videos, we're going to start to roll out some more. We also have, you know, potentially a centennial coming up in 2018 that we need to start thinking about, and how do we want to portray that potentially in video. So there's a lot of different ways that I think we envision video becoming more and more valuable, and just housing as much as possible as we can on our website and microsites, and leveraging it as much as possible.
So it sounds like you're sold on this approach, and you're beginning to get traction persuading partners around campus to get on board as well.
Yeah, we've had, in just the short time that we've had a couple videos with Embryo, we've had a lot of great feedback, a lot of success, a lot of people complimenting us on the videos. We've shown the videos at our open house events as kind of the intro to the Fox School of Business to get people revved up and excited to be there at orientation. New students are here today for the online MBA program, and we started the entire day by showing them the online video for the online program that was produced. So there's a lot of different ways that we can extend those videos, and that's just an example.
That's great. Austin, could I ask you to answer the same question as you think about where your efforts are being invested in the next, say, 12 to 24 months? How do you foresee utilizing this approach?
Definitely in terms of celebrating the end of the campaign. So we're on target for that in just a couple years, and really looking at showing success in the larger scale, but also thinking about bite-size videos that show successes. And so thinking about different length, different applications. I'm really jealous about the game layer that Fox was able to do. So I was like, ooh, let's integrate things. You know, let's get people in a space where they're really interacting with different types of media. I think that's something that we've started to do, but that we want to be able to guide people a little bit more heavily into spending time on those interfaces and looking at ways that we can use video as sort of that bread trail that leads folks to spending more time on our platforms. So touting success, looking forward, and then getting people really more involved in terms of time spent on our sites is something that we're really interested in.
Great, thank you. Ryan, can I now ask you to prognosticate from your vantage point? Where do you see all of this going, both for higher ed as well as nonprofits in general?
I think in general the audiences for video are going to get smaller and smaller, and that You know, you're already kind of seeing it even with Facebook, how they're taking your content and creating these almost personalized automatic videos. And I think over time, video, maybe not in the next 12 months or 24 months, but within the next 5 years, there's going to be a way that we're going to be able to create one-to-one video. You can almost start seeing it now with stuff like Periscope, live streaming, and I think that's going to be the next horizon where you're going to be adding this authentic video, this live streaming video into the mix. One of the shoots that we did recently, as a teaser for the actual video that we were producing, they live streamed some of the production process on social media, and it was a teaser of the video that hasn't even come out yet, and just to get people excited. And I think you're going to see more of that, and you're going to see more of this just video content in every facet of communication. You know, most people under 40 don't read in the same way that people over 40 read. Video content is something people just consume. You know, and they consume more and more niche kinds of content. My business partner and I were talking the other day about YouTube, and he loves 1970s Italian horror films, and he loves going onto YouTube, and there's a space for him to learn more about 1970s Italian horror films that somebody is producing on YouTube. And I think that kind of level of detail in your content is going to be the next step.
Thanks. What you were saying about the one-to-one video and the streaming really kind of hit home for me. We had a moment before reunion this year when we published our live streaming schedule 2 weeks in advance, which we normally do, and we got a call from Principal Gifts, and they said that one of their nearest and dearest friends had looked at the schedule and was disappointed that one of the things that was happening as part of his class reunion wasn't on the schedule. They sort of very gingerly asked us if we'd be open to adding a session to the live stream schedule, and our feeling was, if you've given multiple hundreds of millions of dollars, sure, we'd be happy to live stream that just for you. Not a problem. So I think you're right. Those things are now within the realm of possibility, and we can actually pivot on a dime, and we can make that happen in 24 hours in a way that even 5 years ago would have been completely impossible.
Yeah.
So with that, we're drawing to the end of our hour. I'd like to thank you all again for participating. Do you have any last words for the audience? Words of encouragement as they think about making a more substantial investment in video?
I would just say that video is there's nothing to be afraid of video, and it's something that once you've made the leap, you're like Austin said, if you've done the first video, you're always going to be able to make multiple cuts. You're always going to be able to, even if you only have the budget for one video, and that's all you're really focused on, there are ways to get multiple cuts out of that video, just because of the nature of how production works. So I'd say, as a first step, if you've got a big video project and you're doing it, work with your video provider to just think about ways, how can I repurpose this? How can I re-edit this? How can I change the title graphics? How can I, change some of the B-roll with some still photos? How can I just be creative with what I've got to make something new? And that's the beauty of video, is that through editing and creativity, you can literally take some footage and repurpose it a million different ways. And that's really empowering.
Austin or Melissa, any last words from you?
I would just say, to follow up with what Ryan said, be brave. I think there are times where people think, oh, well, I don't know video. And you may not know the logistics behind it. That's why there are professionals. That's fine. But you do have taste, probably. And so you know kind of what you like. If you don't know what you like, you know what your kids like. Ask questions, but don't be afraid to try something new. If you've only ever done interviews, talk to, like, well, maybe we should try animation. Maybe we could step away from what we usually do. I think you'll be surprised happily, for the most part, of the feedback you get from your audiences. So I would say be brave.
And I would just say that I think in the world that we live in today, where content reigns king, it's more important than ever that we take advantage of the sight and sound element of video to communicate what we have to say, and really bring to life everything that there is behind whatever brand or image it is that you're promoting. So, working in media for many, many years, there was always the term TV is king, and while I might not necessarily agree with that, I do think that video is the new era of what we have to look forward to from where TV used to be.
Video is king. That's a good message to wrap the show on. Austin, Melissa, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time and your insight into this topic. That draws things to a close. Thanks, as always, to our program sponsors, iModules and M. Stoner. And my co-host, Kim Brown, will be back in late August with another episode of Advancement Live. That's all for now. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.